Hello, this is SR. Now I am telling you about a cruel revenge, Reddit cheating story. Now let's start. I observed my soon-to-be ex-wife, Laura, and my despicable best friend, Robert. Our marriage has lasted for 25 years, while Robert and I have been friends for 23 years. The moment he began cheating with my wife, my former best friend turned into a complete jerk. "Listen, Steve, you don't need that gun," Bob said. "Whatever the issue is, we can discuss it calmly. You have nothing to fear from me. Please, release your finger from the trigger." My Block 45 handgun lay flat on the armrest of my chair, with my finger resting on the trigger. I don't believe it would be beneficial for my well-being. After all, you outweigh me by 60 pounds and are 6 inches taller. I noticed pictures in your house with your Navy SEAL buddies. You could snap my neck in about 20 seconds. No thank you. I believe it's best if we remain seated until Carol arrives. She dropped off your youngest child at softball practice and will be here soon. "Listen, Steve," my unfaithful wife Laura said, "I don't know what you think is happening. I demand that you put an end to this right now, or else I will." "What will you do, Laura?" I brandished the pistol. "If either of you stand up, I will start shooting. And if you, Bob, get up, I will also start shooting. Why don't we just sit here in silence? And while we're at it, I bet that if the two of you really contemplated, you might find some semblance of intelligence in your feeble minds. Now let's sit here and play a quiet game. The first one to spill everything will remain unharmed, while the other will face the consequences." The two of them sat in shock. I simply stared at them as they began to sweat and squirm on the couch. Memories of better days when Laura and I first met started flooding back. Screw this, who cares? What matters now is a small comment made a few months ago that got me thinking. On Saturday afternoon, Carol and Bob were at a barbecue when Laura approached with a couple of cold beers. She handed them to us and said, "For my husbands." I spit the beer out of my nose. When she said that, Bob just smirked. "What was that about?" I asked Steve. "I have 3 husbands." Swiftly recovering, she chuckled and declared, "I have a spouse at the workplace, a spouse at the car depot, and a spouse whom I genuinely adore. It's you, Steve." I chuckled in response and she bestowed a kiss upon me, sliding her tongue down my throat. This was an unprecedented act from her. My stomach churned with unease. I began to closely observe the two of them, but found nothing out of the ordinary. I meticulously examined the security systems and cloud records, delving into years of stored archival data, yet found no evidence. Could they have orchestrated this affair years ago before the advent of CCTV cameras? However, she spoke of husbands as if they were genuine. Over the following months, I meticulously scrutinized phone logs and sifted through all the emails on her computer and phone dating back to the previous year. Still, nothing. I was aware that both of them worked in a government office where CCTV cameras were omnipresent. There was no way they could have evaded detection. I even inspected the credit card receipts I had meticulously saved over the years. But once again, there was no trace. It appeared that their rendezvous only occurred in the car. They never left early or in separate vehicles for work. They only traveled alone when one of them was unwell or for family gatherings and vacations, always returning home punctually. The only instances they arrived home late at night were when they encountered heavy traffic due to accidents. Approximately an hour and 15 minutes each day, they never attended conferences or seminars. Perhaps my instincts had failed me. That was until Bob arrived 6 weeks ago, and then my eldest son Eric left at the same time. It was then that I noticed they both had a similar build in the back. I promptly went online and ordered DNA test kits for my children, Eric, Todd, and my youngest, and to be delivered to our home. I instructed them not to disclose anything to their mother. I intended to surprise her on her birthday. Carol entered the house. "Surprise, happy birthday, Laura," I exclaimed. Carol nonchalantly tossed 3 plain vanilla envelopes onto the coffee table before them. Laura inquired of Carol, "What is this?" and requested her to open and read the contents. "Then I will inform you," I added with a snort, "but I believe they are self-explanatory." Reluctantly, they both reached out and opened each one, causing Laura's face to turn pale. Upon first glance, Robert became nauseous and vomited into a nearby basket by the sofa. Laura proceeded to read the other two and burst into tears. "I am deeply sorry, Steve. I never intended to put you through this. I mistakenly believed they belonged to you. I misjudged the timing of my fertility," she confessed. Robert regained his composure and began pleading. "She assured me she would be careful. I would never betray my best friend like this." Laura retorted, "We were never best friends. It seems you both took pleasure in making fools out of Carol and me. However, I have no intention of shooting you or jeopardizing your job. We will be divorcing you instead. If I were to terminate your employment, Laura, I would be obligated to provide child support. I will retain my pension and you will keep yours. We will divide all other assets equally. I have transferred all our investments into Anne's college trust fund. Additionally, I have closed all joint credit accounts and placed half of the remaining funds into a separate bank account. We will put the house up for sale. All the cherished memories I associated with this place were merely a facade. I have already secured an apartment on the opposite side of the city as far away from the two of you as possible. This morning, I informed the children that I am not their biological father, but merely a foolish man who was deceived by both of you. Needless to say, they are not pleased with you. Anne has expressed her desire to move in with me once she completes school in 2 months. She does not wish to communicate with you, Laura. I have refrained from speaking ill of you. Therefore, you must give her time. Please, Steve," Laura pleaded. "I love you. I always have and always will. It was just a mistake in my cycle." I chuckled and shook my head. "Laura, I don't believe you truly believe the nonsense you're attempting to sell me. There's an old saying in the Bronx, shit has a sound of its own. I do love you, though." She sobbed, expressing her desire to grow old with our grandchildren and witness their births while trying to hold back her tears. I responded, addressing Laura, and pointed out a significant issue. "Unfortunately, you and I will not have children for you to cherish, as it turns out. I will never have the opportunity to see our grandchildren either. You can watch them with Bob instead." She burst into tears once again and apologized, expressing remorse for what she had done to me. I glanced at Bob and tears began streaming down his face. He attempted to wipe them away before they fell onto his lap. Carol approached and started comforting Bob. "I had spoken to all of your former SEAL team members and informed them about how you had violated the code of conduct within the Navy. Not military law, but rather the code that governs relationships among Marines themselves. I informed them about your affair with your best friend's wife, betraying both him and me for the past 23 years. According to the email, they consider you persona non grata. I am certain they will personally contact you. As far as you and I are concerned, our relationship is now completely over. I will no longer have to do any household chores. I will receive alimony for the remainder of my life, or until I decide to remarry, although I have no intention of doing so. I will simply bring men to my house and engage in sexual activities with them in a bed that you will be financially responsible for. I have already instructed my lawyer to freeze our joint financial accounts. We will receive benefits until the divorce is finalized. I intend to take everything we have. I am confident that my lawyer will thoroughly expose both of you for what you have done to us. And I will ensure that I portray myself as the victimized wife who wasted 23 years of her life on you in front of the jury. The good news is that I have sent the DNA information to your parents, Bob. They are overjoyed to have 3 additional grandchildren. However, I cannot say the same for Steve's family. They were utterly devastated by the fact that they will never have grandchildren." Laura slid off the couch, crying in utter despair. I brandished the gun towards Bob. "Help her up," I commanded. Bob assisted her back onto the sofa, holding her tightly to prevent her from collapsing to the floor. A man entered the room and inquired, "Are you Mr. Robert Watkins?" Bob affirmed his identity, prompting the delivery of a legal document. The individual then turned to Laura, addressing her as Mrs. Laura Foster, and placed an envelope on her lap, capturing a photograph as confirmation before departing. Upon receiving the envelope, Carol informed Bob of its contents, a restraining order against him. She instructed him to vacate the premises within 2 hours, expressing her reluctance to engage further with him. Despite her lack of fear, Carol conveyed her desire for distance from Bob. She assured him of her intent to facilitate his visitation with their children once the situation was resolved. Suggesting that Bob could reside with Laura, Carol proposed a temporary separation, with Bob departing for the weekend while she finalized her departure arrangements, planning to leave on Sunday morning. In response, Laura, overwhelmed with emotion, acquiesced to Carol's decision, prompting Bob's confusion. Clarifying the situation, Carol elucidated their suspicion of Bob and Laura's infidelity, particularly referencing a previous instance where Laura referred to Bob as one of her husbands. She implored Bob to divulge the truth regarding their covert relationship over the years. Bob sighed and reluctantly admitted to engaging in infidelity solely within the confines of the car during their commute to and from work. He disclosed that their illicit relationship commenced approximately a year after they began traveling together, rationalizing their actions as a means to alleviate stress after a taxing workday. Carol questioned the necessity of seeking solace after routine office tasks and traffic congestion. Reminiscing about a specific incident when Carol tended to a sick relative, Bob recounted Carol's plea for his return due to her distress, which occurred merely a week after his departure. He also highlighted the negligence towards Laura's partner, Steve, who diligently managed household responsibilities while Laura engaged in the clandestine affair. "Hey, Steve, you know what? Maybe we should have considered having an affair back then. We were always under so much pressure to take care of everything before Carol and Bob got home. Speaking of which, Bob, you were the one who insisted on buying a van, so this is all on you. Well, Bob, I think it's time for you two to leave. As for me, I never want to see you again. You and Carol have your children to raise, so I guess you'll still have your hands full. I won't be attending any more family gatherings now that you and Carol have kids, and you and Laura have kids together. It'll certainly make the parties more interesting without me." Bob looked at me and said, "Steve, I'm sorry that I was the biological donor for your children, but you are their real father." Somehow, that didn't make me feel any better. "Now both of you, please leave. Laura, you can come back on Sunday. Carol, help me pack your bag for the night, and your parents are waiting for you." I was sitting in my chair, sipping on my Jack and Coke, when I felt gentle hands massaging my shoulders. "You have so much tension in your shoulders," she whispered in my ear, leaning over me. "I want to take it all away. How about a little revenge sex?" Time went by and Bob moved in with Laura, but their relationship didn't last long. It's interesting how things change. I still see Carol subscribing to our channel, making sure your sous chef doesn't cheat on you. And go ahead, listen to the next story, because this one is nothing compared to what's coming next. But if you're under 18, don't even think about listening to it.